So, hello everybody. Just going to wait a couple of minutes just to let people come in to the space. And the webinar is being recorded. I hope that's okay with everybody. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment so that I can just get a better view of what's going on here. So we'll see, 2 minutes passed. Just wait another minute. Okay, but I actually think that I'm just going to get started because we've only got 1 hour and we've probably all got more to say than we've all got a lot to say. So let's get going here. Welcome everybody. Really happy to see that there has been such a lot of interest in our July webinar, Cultivating Responsible Recreation Practices, where we'll discuss existing and emerging approaches. My name is Louise Peterson. I'm with the Outdoor Recreation Council of BC, and this webinar is hosted by the ORC. The ORC is a charitable organization with more than 60 organizational members that span the entire spectrum of outdoor recreation user groups. We work to promote and advocate for access to and responsible use of BC's outdoors for public recreation. We build bridges between different user groups, and we represent the broad interest of the organized recreation community to government and to industry at times as well. And I certainly encourage any of you who are part of an outdoor group to join us as a member. I just want to say that I'm very grateful to our members and also to our funders, including TD Friends of the Environment Foundation, for supporting us in putting on webinars like these. Special thanks to Mandeep Vikirat from TD Friends of the Environment, who will be here today. So there has been a real surge in outdoor recreation the last couple of years, in the last several years, and it's very it's great to see so many people reaping the many benefits of an outdoor or active lifestyle. However, there's really no denying that it is putting increased pressure on the outdoors in terms of increased litter, wildlife conflicts, environmental degradation, illegal land use, user conflicts, and there are many other challenges too. Responsible recreation and sticking to best practices have likely never been more important than they are now, but changing behaviors certainly isn't easy. We brought together some of BC's sharpest minds today for a conversation about that explores successful approaches to cultivating responsible recreation practices. And I'm certainly very, very happy that they've been willing to give up some of their time today to kind of join us on this panel. So I will just move to my next slide. It's a bit of an overview of who's on the panel. So we've got Clara-Jane Blye, CJ. She's a PhD student at the University of Alberta. We've got Stephen Sorry, Stephen, you'll just have to say your last name afterwards. Stephen is an author. Many of you will know of him, and a responsible recreation advocate. Got Brian Pratt, who's a tread lightly educator and a member of the Four-Wheel Drive Association of BC, and Sherry Liu, education and learning lead with BC Parks, and John Ray, a representative from the Sea to Sky Destination Management Council. So I won't spend more time introducing. I'll just let you all introduce yourself a little bit more if you want to do that. But CJ, we'll start with your presentation. So actually, I'm just letting you all know that what we'll do is that I'm giving each presenter no more than 5 minutes to outline some of the work that they are doing. And that's going to be tough because, yeah, I know that you all have a lot to say. But afterwards, I've got some questions for the presenters. And at the end, we'll open up from questions from all of you. So feel free to start posting your questions in the Q&A box. And just letting you know, too, that this webinar is recorded, and the recording will go out within the next 24 hours to everybody who have registered. So that's probably it from me right now. Over to you, CJ.
muted. Are you comfortable? Do you want me to share my screen?
Oh, I can certainly, I can totally
want...
do that. I can do that. They are right here.
Just faster, then we don't have to worry about technology and glitches. Okay,
sure.
Wonderful. So, so thanks for having me today, folks. So my name is CJ Blye. I am just finishing up my PhD in about 3 months at the University of Alberta. And I do research in, broadly speaking, in environmental psychology, looking at behaviors and motivations of park visitors all across Canada, but we've been focusing obviously in Alberta and BC, sort of western provinces, and a little work in Ontario as well. So today I want to talk a little bit about one of the most recent projects that we just finished up. So we'll go to the next slide. We just concluded a systematic review of communication, environmental communication in nature-based tourism context. So I hope that you all see yourselves within that broad definition of nature-based tourism context. That can mean a local park that folks go, they might go on a hike, or they're visiting a regional park. Of course, we see our provincial and national level parks and protected areas, our trails, our water trails, our land trails, our water trails, our winter destinations for snowmobiling, skiing, downhill, cross country. Hopefully you see yourself represented in nature-based tourism. And so we were really interested in understanding how we have used and understood communication to advocate for environmental behaviors, for helping to communicate pro-environmental behaviors and ultimately responsible recreation. So we all engage in some form of communication on, I would argue, a daily or hourly basis. And when we're thinking about environmental communication, we're really using this as a tool to exchange our understanding of the environment, as well as the different problems and issues and threats that shape our relationship with the natural world, and how we can engage in these pro-environmental behaviors. So we've been doing this for a long time, but unfortunately, I don't have a silver bullet for you. I don't have a perfect answer, even though the research has been ongoing for arguably the last sort of 50, 60 years, quite intensely, maybe a little bit longer. And we looked at specifically the last 20 years. What we found primarily is that studies are really looking and assessing at easily accessible or painless pro-environmental behaviors. So are folks littering or not? Are they throwing out their waste or taking it with them? Are they visiting parks? Are they telling people what they learned? Are they going to interpretive programs? Are they recycling? Are they willing to sign petition? We know less about those sort of larger behaviors or more challenging behaviors, which doesn't mean we know nothing. I just want to be upfront with what the research community can and can't provide as far as a systematic review where we have tons of data to be able to make some inferences. So what we did learn, and I think is pretty valuable, we'll go to the next slide, which was our top 5 elements our top 4 elements for effective communication. So the first thing that came out of this review is being really understanding your why behind the message, tapping into people's moral norms or their ethics, really let them know why this behavior impacts this environment directly, whether you're a park or protected area or public lands, thinking about what the specific behaviors are that you're trying to address through communication, and give that emotional connection or that ethics and moral connection. Number 2 is consistency. So we've definitely seen really great success in the states and the National Park Service relationship with Leave No Trace. We don't have quite that same consistent message across Canada, but within your jurisdiction or within the province of BC, having that consistent messaging, whatever we choose for it to be, would be really beneficial. Number 3, really, this is new. don't be afraid to target emotions. So there's not as many studies out there yet, but we just conducted another study with Alberta Parks looking at the influence of emotions on environmental behavior intentions following a personal interpretive program. And we really find that there's huge value in tapping into people's emotions. It really influences our decisions to engage in behaviors. Do you feel guilty if you forget your water bottle at home and need to buy a plastic water bottle? Hopefully you do. But tap into that guilt, tap into that sense that visitors should want to engage in these behaviors, because if they don't, there are negative outcomes. Same thing goes for pride when we can show those positives. And then anger is a little bit less studied, but also don't be afraid that some of our pro-environmental behaviors might be a result of people being angry. And then finally, try to stay positive. Okay, and I'll go to my last slide because I only have 30 seconds. Some innovative and promising practices that came out of this review: the use of visitor pledges, post-visit action resources. So how can you connect with visitors after they leave the destination? Do you have a relationship with those visitors on social media? Are there tools that you can provide them to go home with? The next one is the use of virtual and augmented reality. If anybody here has been on explore.org, we can chat. If you haven't, I'll tell you all about it after this. But there's really great research suggesting we can connect with nature through virtual experiences. And then finally, are you using social media in a way that connects with your visitors? Not just posting, but having a relationship back and forth. And that's it for my 5 minutes. So thanks for letting me speak a little bit about this recent publication. We've got lots more that I can share, and looking forward to hearing from our next presenters.
Right.
Great. Yeah, thanks to the Outdoor Recreation Council for hosting this conversation. I think it's great to bring different sectors together to talk about responsible recreation. So my name is Stephen Hoy. I'm dialing in from Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territories. I'm a former journalist, and I now work in environmental communications. And I participate in this responsible recreation conversation in 3 ways. The main one is I'm an author of hiking books. My most recent book's called Best Hikes and Nature Walks with Kids, and it's been great to connect with families through that. I'm a member of hiking clubs, like the Wanderung Outdoor Recreation Society. I'm on the board of Nature Vancouver, and I'm a member of North Shore Hikers. So I've learned a lot about responsible recreation through hiking clubs, and I also think it's a wonderful place to pass on those norms and standards and guidelines. I also do a lot of media interviews, especially when I have a book coming out, and often the questions are about responsible recreation. So I find that I tend to focus on when I'm doing these interviews and I'm talking to people, they often ask, aren't you destroying these places, or aren't you worried you're destroying these places by writing about them? And my answer tends to be that I feel a responsibility to provide the context and provide information on how to be responsible when you're visiting these areas. So I feel comfortable, if I balance out that information and help be, part of the solution. And so in my books, I tend to focus on kind of 2 aspects of this. There's obviously the environmental ethics. There's both the personal minimum impact practices. And there's also kind of the collective responsibility, highlighting past organizing efforts where people have banded together to protect areas, and how we can together do that in the future. Also, think that respecting Indigenous territories, like everywhere we hike is Indigenous territories. If you've hiked in a lot of places, a lot of beautiful places, a lot of them are actually sacred, and so I think informing people about that and being mindful of guidelines that are being put out there is important. And so I just quickly want to go through 4 key resources that really inform what I write, and and that I think are great sources of info. Obviously, one is the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics, or their Canadian wing as well, and they have all sorts of great messaging on wildfires and all sorts of different aspects of outdoor recreation, and they have cool graphics like this, and they're the basis for a lot of individual action. Wild Safe BC is great for information about how to coexist with bears, cougars, marmots, whatever, and they have great infographics about that. I love the BC Marine Trail Association's Marine Code of Conduct. It brings in messages about not disturbing cultural and heritage sites, because many beaches are important cultural and heritage sites for First Nations, and it brings together kind of the environmental and the cultural, and pledges like the Hayaguay Pledge is wonderful, because people will, when they go to Hayaguay, they have a chance to find out a bit about Haida principles and pledge to respect Haida ways of being, as well as also are encouraged to donate to the Hayaguay Stewardship Fund. So like a 1% of travel cost donation to help the Council of the Haida Nation protect the environment. And I think we'll see more of these as we go forward. So yeah, thanks for having me, and I look forward to learning from everyone else.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Pratt. I'm from the Four-Wheel Drive Association of BC, and I'm a master tread trainer with Tread Lightly. I've been involved in the Four-Wheel Drive Association for about 5 years, and it's basically, well, it's changed my life. The association's been around since 1970, and what we want to do is promote education as a key component. We stand for safe and responsible wheeling. What I mean by wheeling is just getting out on the back roads and driving our mainly four-wheel drive trucks. And nowadays we're getting into all the all-wheel drive cars. But what we want to do, what we've been trying to do, is to spread responsible use of the outdoors. The way we do that, mainly through education. And we have couple programs that are really good. Since I guess it was 2019, we've started up this what's called the Wheeling Wisely program, and it's two separate courses that people can take. Or there is a slight charge, but it's highly compensated. It's not actually that very much. It's day-long courses. There's one that's the fundamentals of wheeling, so people get taught how to properly drive on the back roads, how to set up their vehicles, how to check their vehicles, make sure there's nothing, no leaks, and so it's all nice, for the outdoors. And the second course, which is usually followed the same weekend, is Essentials of Off-Road Recovery. So it's to help people, if they're out there and they get stuck or find other people that are in trouble, how to properly use the equipment and get out of different situations. These are actually provided by local instructors that were trained by the Four-Wheel Drive Trainers Association, which is a highly touted organization out of the US. We have these courses monthly. But unfortunately, the demand is so high is that not everybody can be able to do them. So we're now going to start training local people with the trainers, with our other trainers. And these have actually been spread out throughout the province of BC, not just Lower Mainland. There's been up in Prince George, Apex, out in the Kootenays, Vancouver Island. So we try to encompass the whole province. We did have a lot of complaints that, it's all just based on the Lower Mainland, but, if people actually go out and look, we're through the whole province. What else? We have lots of other things. There's now a youth-based initiative called Wheelers of Tomorrow, which is getting school-age children, giving them the benefit, or giving them some knowledge and experience of going with knowledgeable drivers, experienced drivers out for picnics. We've had a couple of campouts. And it's just kind of an exciting thing to get children involved in it too. And then we became just lately, we've actually become involved with Tread Lightly, not Thread Lightly, but Tread Lightly, which is an American-based organization. And the TREAD comes from an acronym, which is travel responsibly, respect the rights of others, educate yourself, avoid sensitive areas, and do your part, which is a lot like leave no trace, but it's just a kind of organized a bit differently. What else? We just keep, one good thing about the association is that every month there's at least 2 what we call newbie and maintenance runs, where we get a lot of people that want to go. We have the Hale Creek rec site and up near Stave Lake, and we get new people, teach them how to take care of their vehicles, how to act responsibly on the back roads, and then we actually go to the places and do cleanups and maintenance. And those are actually, we have maintenance events all throughout the province. This coming weekend, there's up in Lavina, Flyer Tower, up in the Kootenays, there's a maintenance run. We're rebuilding a rec site up in Chetwynd in August, and adding more outhouses and picnic tables at Francis Lake down in the Lower Mainland. So we're continuously busy. Luckily, I just retired, so now I get to go travel to all these different places, to help out. So that's what the association does.
Thanks, Brian. Lots of good work for sure. Sherry, let's hear from you and BC Parks.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise. Hi, everyone. My name is Sherry, and as Louise mentioned, I'm the Education and Learning Lead with BC Parks. I'm calling in today from the traditional territory of the Kési, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo people. And my role has me working at headquarters, and I work in a supportive role with our regional colleagues. I am fairly new in my role, but I'm excited to be here today to talk about our provincial level initiatives regarding responsible recreation. So I will get my slideshow up. Perfect. So responsible recreation through partnerships. We at BC Parks recognize that behavior change is a systemic issue that we can't solve single-handedly. And by having limited resources, that means that we're able to leverage partnerships to amplify responsible recreation. And today I want to talk about 4 of our initiatives with partners and how we are sharing our education resources. So we'll start with the Campers Code. So a lot of partners involved. I'll show them all on the next slide. It was originally inspired by the Alpine Responsibility Code to create a camping culture where all campers, no matter how they choose to camp, will hold each other accountable when it comes to behavior. It's 9 simple rules. There's a pledge online. We love pledges. And to date, over 1,500 people have taken the pledge, and it was launched just ahead of the camping season last year. And what BC Parks brings to this partnership is our access to campers. In 2021 alone, we had more than 350,000 reservations made on our reservation system. And this year, when we launched our new camping reservation system, we included the Campers Code, and we have already seen an increase in number of people who have taken the pledge. So just a quick look at all the organizations who are involved, mostly BC based, and love to see that. Another partnership we are involved in is the Discover Park Ambassadors with the BC Parks Foundation. With the 8 teams of ambassadors around the province, we really see the value of the face-to-face interactions they're able to provide park visitors. They focus on educating park visitors, promoting connections to nature, outdoor safety, and responsible recreation. And an example of how we were able to use this partnership was earlier this season, Golden Ears Provincial Park had a food condition fair, and our regional colleagues were able to work with the ambassadors within a couple days to really adjust their programming to focus on attractant management, as well as human-wildlife interactions. Which leads us nicely into the Bear Campsite program, a partnership with WildSafe BC, currently in place in 2 provincial parks and hoping to expand to more locations in the future. And we leverage partnerships where the partners are subject matter experts. Their knowledge and expertise, we connect them to our park operators, who then connect to park visitors to amplify the messaging from WildSafe BC. And one of our most recent partnership projects is the Hiking Explore Pack with the Richmond Public Library and BC Adventure Smart. The library patrons can sign out backpacks containing essentials and a packing list for what to pack on their hike. We're connecting community partners like Adventure Smart to public libraries to ensure that education materials are being shared with folks who are maybe new to the outdoors. So these are just 4 of our recent partnership examples of how we use that to spread our responsible recreation messaging. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Lots of initiatives there for sure. So John, do you want to go next and last before we move into questions?
Thank you, Louise, and thank you, my fellow panelists and presenters. And in fact, anybody who's listening in might think that we've all rehearsed this because all of these are knitting together nicely. But in fact, we haven't. We haven't actually even met previously. And but in fact, what I'll be doing is building on those presentations and speaking to you on behalf of a larger group. That group is the Sea to Sky Destination Management Council. I will expand on that on the next slide. And I'd also like to say that on behalf of that group, I'm speaking to you from the shared territory, unceded territory of both the Squamish Nation and the Lillooet Nation in Whistler. I am representing the resort municipality of Whistler, so the municipal government in Whistler, on the Sea to Sky Destination Management Council, and that is populated by representatives from DMOs and communities and various organizations, businesses throughout the corridor from North Van all the way up to Lillooet. So I have 3 different slides that I'm going to put up, but the first one is this one. Hopefully is that being shared? Not just yet.
Not yet.
There we are. I will share that one. Are we shared?
Yeah, it's starting.
Now,
Yeah,
what you will
perfect.
see on the upper right-hand corner is the phrase, "Don't love it to death." And so what I'm doing is actually kind of finishing with the punchline, because that is the name of the recently launched campaign that was developed through 2 years of work with the Sea to Sky Destination Management Council, a lot of research, a lot of stakeholder engagement, communication. And what I'd like to do is bring your attention to the key messaging point here, which is quite simply, as it says, it conveys that while everyone loves this area, we need to respect its natural beauty, the people and the communities. It drives home the message that increased recreation and increased usage of community assets is putting strain on the environment, on communities, on residents, and on infrastructure. I'm not going to read every word here, but what I will do is also let you know that we were fortunate to receive funding to the tune of about $370,000 from the province, as well as 3 of the DMOs have contributed to a media buy. So the total project is actually about a $450,000 project at this point. So again, don't love it to death. How did we get there? I'm going to stop share there, and I'm going to share another screen, which is, we got there by, I'm going to share this screen now. We got there by identifying the problem, and I'll distill that on the next slide, increasing interest in outdoor recreation and travel, not just in the Sea to Sky region, but as we know, everywhere, and it's putting strain. And what we did is we identified 9 pain points. Those are not dissimilar from the various points that were identified in previous presentations, so I won't go through them in detail. We wanted to find the true problem, which is many of the issues we see associated are symptoms of an underlying problem with human behavior. Now, I'm not going to be too self-indulgent and go through this in a lot of detail, except the unanimous consensus among stakeholders was that everyone plays a role in this problem, regardless of demographics, psychographics, or geography. Importantly, we're saying residents are every bit as important in this initiative, and addressing residents' behavior is every bit as important as it is to address visitor behavior. I just want to go here. So what we actually said was that most people want to do the right thing and not contribute to the problem. However, we heard about 8 unique mindsets. And again, I don't think I have time to go through them in detail. I'll just fly through this, but we can discuss it in more detail subsequently afterwards if you'd like. The vacation, you only live once. Do it for the gram, the Instagram. Initially, when I read that, I thought it was do it for your grandmother, but no, do it for Instagram. New and or unprepared. What do you mean you're out here in your ballet slippers on a dangerous hike? Groupthink, no plan whatsoever. Oh, we're just going to get out there and explore. Out of sight, out of mind. If I put this litter quietly behind that tree, no one will notice it, and that means I didn't really litter. The entitled local, and they do exist. Won't go through that in detail. I'm going to stop share. I'm actually going to go to one last slide here, which is slide 29, saying, while we're all busy blaming others, few people are talking about the personal responsibility we all have to manage our own behavior and check our own attitudes. So it's, hey, look at the mirror, look in the mirror, please. I'm going to stop share that and just show you how this is manifesting itself in the marketplace, because we just went live last week. And you might have been aware of the media release that, bear with me, I've managed to, screen share. Now I'll just show 3 or 4 executions. This is a poster that now appears on BC ferries. Climb to new heights, don't stoop to new lows. We're all out here together. It's our responsibility to treat it right, respect the land and its peoples and its communities. Don't love it to death. And I guess a lot of conversation was had about the don't love it to death, because we wanted to be provocative without shaming. That's one of the reasons that there's a little heart there in the O in the word love. By the same token, we want to make sure that we're pointedly provocative. We don't want it to be innocuous to the point where people are not paying attention. And then I'll tell you the last thing we're doing when I just show you one more thing here. Another one, climb to new heights, don't stoop to new lows, another image. Various things, when nature calls, know how to go the right way, gather the party, not the animals, pack in the fun, but pack out your garbage. And then just finally, a social reel, don't love it to death. And I don't know, we'll just give this a go. See if I can do this. Let me see if this is working. Is the video loading? If it doesn't show up in
I don't see it.
Okay, no worries. You know what? I'm going to just stop share. So what I'm going to do is say, what I really wanted to do was present on behalf of the Sea to Sky Destination Management Council that campaign about which we're very proud. It was developed by Origin, the Whistler-based organization, advertising marketing agency, which has worked on many DMO campaigns. And so they have great insight and depth of understanding on this as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to Louise, who may want to ask some initial questions. Hopefully that was helpful.
Oh, that's great, John. And actually, thanks, Stephen. Stephen has been handling the questions and answers so far. But there were a couple of questions from people, Julie and Todd, about whether you can share those documents, John. Are we able to kind of can I share them out? Any other documents? Maybe you can send me what I can share out to the group.
Simple answer is yes. What I would like to do is just speak to a couple of my colleagues just to see if there is a distilled version. I'm sharing all of these things publicly. It's not as though they are confidential, because we have actually shared them publicly in other forums as well. However, I think there may be a succinct way to put together a package that we could then give to you to share with anybody who inquires.
That sounds great. Thanks, John. Well, thanks, everybody. So we've got 25 minutes left for questions. So thank you for being so succinct and awesome. I'm actually very impressed. I thought I would have to kind of go in there like 2 more minutes. But no, that's good. So I'll just kind of start out with a quick question for each of you. So CJ, I'll start with you. I will ask you, have you seen a noticeable difference in outdoor behaviors between those who use campsites and recreation facilities near local communities or front country and those that visit the back country? I think you might have done a bit of studying on this.
Yeah, so I love this question, and I also love what John just said, that there's a a unanimous decision that we all are a part of this, right? That everybody is sort of guilty or not guilty, right? That it doesn't matter what your background is, what your experience is, what your first language is, that we're all using these resources. But we do notice a difference, and we have seen some differences in the different types of users visiting these different types of sites. So I think primarily a lot of us expect backcountry users to be more experienced and therefore more committed to pro-environmental behaviors or responsible recreation. But the reality is that and you probably know this, that's probably not happening in all of your communities for lots of different reasons. The last 3 years have shown us massive increases in new recreationists venturing into the backcountry. So maybe they are unaware of rules, maybe they are just unprepared. Maybe those behaviors are more challenging because they are used to having access to certain resources like a garbage can or like a fire pit that they no longer have when they venture out into the backcountry. So when we looked at the difference between front country and backcountry users, the study was published in 2020. We looked at folks camping in Alberta and in Ontario. And again, we thought the hypothesis that we brought was that the backcountry users would be sort of hold attitudes and values more in line with leave no trace. Whereas we found that it was actually the front country visitors who had attitudes that were more supportive of these behaviors. And so when we look at the other literature and we look at what's going on, again, it really, we then think, we hypothesize, because unfortunately we didn't do a controlled test, but we think that it's really tied to that convenience. So it is easier to engage in those behaviors when the infrastructure and the amenities is available to us. We can go to the bathroom in a bathroom or an outhouse versus do we know how to properly dig a cat hole and dispose of our toilet paper? We can throw out our garbage when there's a garbage can. So we need to think about how can we make the behaviors we want visitors to engage in as easy as possible. I recognize you're not all going to install outhouses and garbage cans at your trailheads or up on the top of a mountain, but how can we make those behaviors as easy as possible for folks venturing out into the backcountry? And the last thing I'll say about this, the other big difference between front country and backcountry is the opportunities to engage with participants. So there is likely to be more staff or more volunteers available to a front country site than to a backcountry site. But can you think of innovative ways to tap into your volunteer resources? Can you shift around some of your staffing resources so that there are folks out in the backcountry engaging with outdoor recreation users and reminding them of the behaviors and also just being there? We see lots of great influence of just seeing someone in a uniform. I think John mentioned groupthink. Groupthink is powerful. Social norms are powerful. If we see other people engaging in that behavior, we're more likely to engage in it, whether it's good or bad. So if there's that presence of staff or volunteers, we're less likely to take our dog off the leash. We're less likely to drop our garbage on the trail. And so those are some differences and some insights into how to engage with those different types of users.
Well, thanks, CJ. That was insightful and good to know. Moving on to Stephen. Stephen, have you come across any misconceptions about responsible recreation that some people tend to have?
Yeah, I mean, one of them is, it was mentioned earlier that it's visitors are the problem, not locals. That it's about also just about individual actions when the collective actions are important. Advocating for public funding and public education and that as well is important as just digging your own cat hole. That it's about not telling other people about places, and that it's the experts are just white people, and people of color need to learn these, and when we need to take our cues from Indigenous nations who are have the knowledge, and that it's something that it's other people, not you.
Well, that's a good point. Brian, what approaches to reaching people have you found to be the most effective at producing behavior changes? So I'm just wondering if you've got any sort of like experiences, from your work with Tread Lightly.
Oh, and getting out in the backcountry, because that's mainly where I and my friends go. To me, it's lead by example and educate people. If people see you, because we go out quite often with our trucks deckled as 4-wheel drive association. So we're known. It's almost like we're police at some points, but we're not, right? We want to go out there and educate the people in the proper ways to do things and not make a big deal of what we're actually doing while we're out there doing it. Picking up garbage, taking out, finding things. And because whenever I'm out at a real campsite, like a rec site or a dispersed camping site, I'm always there picking up whatever I find. If we stop on the side of the road, I pick up whatever I find. And I hope that other people will see that. I've actually seen other people kind of emulate me in different campsites without saying anything and without a lot of recognition, just a waiver and a thanks, not, taking pictures for the gram or, like John was saying, do it for the gram. That's one of our kind of pokes at people, right? So example and education.
Lead by example. I love it. Yeah, let's all do that. Sherry, I've got a question for you too. What messages would you like to share with people who are new to the outdoors?
Totally. We would love to share the importance of planning ahead and preparing. So we at BC Parks, we regularly partner with Adventure Smart. I see Sandra's on the call. Hello. We stress the importance of the 3 T's: trip planning, training, and taking essentials. If people learn to and remember to check for information before they head out on a trip, they can learn things like rules and regulations. Are you allowed to fly your drone? What are the quiet hours? They can know what to pack, what kind of wildlife you may encounter, and how to stay safe. And a recent project we launched with Adventure Smart are the trail safety videos. 8 trails within BC Parks were chosen because of the high volume of search and rescue calls. And they had trail-specific videos made that provide viewers with an in-depth visual planning resource that gives information on terrain, facilities, weather, hiking times, and required skills. So if people are watching these videos before they head on the hike, hopefully they're going a lot better prepared.
Super important. Make sure that you're prepared. Yeah, so John, I have got a question for you too. Have you noticed any changes in the way that people recreate between like before the pandemic and now? Maybe up in Whistler or wherever
Yes,
your area.
Whistler is certainly with the area with which I am most familiar. However, I'm also aware of what's happening throughout the corridor and arguably even throughout BC by virtue of speaking to so many other people who are involved in the business. And I replicate what CJ said, which is it's not so much the behavior as it is the demographic. Feels different. There's a lot more regional demographic now and during the pandemic and now than there was previously. That's not to say we had the vast majority of our visitors were, we previously were about 50% regional, 50% destination. And now we're more like about 95% regional, 5% destination. That'll likely get back to, I'm guessing at those numbers, but directionally, that's sort of, to make the point, I'm just making those directional assumptions. But it's clear that we are experiencing a lot more day tripping than was previously the case. That's perfectly good, that's fine, except those folks tend to come with all the equipment that they feel they need, but they may discover that they need more when they actually get it on a trail. And they imagine that they're familiar with outdoor recreation by virtue of their experience in Greater Vancouver, which may be very different when they get a little further afield. And so it's more the demographic than it is the behavior itself. And we're just, I think it's evidenced by things like significantly increased numbers in search and rescue, significant increases in litter on the trails. I think one of the most important things that I didn't really get to, and I'll just take 30 seconds to do that, is that something we've discovered, and I believe it was Stephen, maybe it was also Sherry, CJ, and Brian, got to the same point, is we've determined that the next phase of our campaign, Don't Love It to Death, in addition to saying problem, no problem, like this is what it should look like, this is what it currently looks like, is it has to be, why is your behavior creating a problem? You know, this is the wrong behavior, but why is it the wrong behavior? What are the cascading implications of littering? What are the cascading implications of driving your vehicle through a salmon spawning stream? What are the, I mean, how does that sort of affect the environment? It's not just one tiny behavior, it actually cascades all the way down through the entire biosphere. And then similar situations with disrespectful behavior of, I think it was Stephen who made mention of sacred sites. And we have to make sure that we explain why this is inappropriate, not just bad dog, here's why you're a bad dog, but without shaming people. Let's make sure we educate people. That's why Don't Love It to Death is first and foremost what we call a destination education initiative.
Thanks, John. Thanks, panelists. So I did have some other questions, but you know what? Actually, I can see that we've got a number of questions from people who are attending. So I'm just going to kind of go into those first. I know that Stephen has been answering some of those, but there are a few left. There's one here from Torren, and it's a question for BC Parks and John from Destination Sea to Sky. Why create your own messaging rather than work with an established partner like Leave No Trace that already does this work? So maybe John or Sherry, whoever wants to kind of go first.
May I have the question again, or is it in the chat?
It's in the chat. So there are programs out there. Leave No Trace is one of them. Adventure Smart is another one. Why, John and BC Parks, are you creating your own messaging rather than working with established partners such as Leave No Trace? So yeah, does that make sense, John?
It does. It's a very good question, and it's one that we addressed. And after significant research with stakeholders throughout the corridor, and even it took quite some time to make sure that we got aligned, it was determined that while not entirely unique problems that are challenges and issues that need to be addressed, they are somewhat more specific than the broad messaging that's available in the marketplace already. And we also wanted to have imagery, which is very clearly sea to sky. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the sea to sky region is the busiest region within the province. And we felt that there were some opportunities to be very pointed at very specific locations. And hopefully that behavior starts to, and there's this word again, has a cascading positive effect throughout the province. It's not to say that we are shunning the other messages that are in the marketplace. We applaud those initiatives, and we will look at ways of integrating with those messages so that they're complementary and that the sum is greater than its parts. Hopefully that makes sense.
Sherry, do you have anything? And maybe that was in regards to like Campus Code or some of the other sort of initiatives within BC Parks. Do you need the question again?
No, I think I read it in the Q&A. Thank you. We as BC Parks, I don't know if you're asking like specifically BC Parks or if it's more our involvement with Camper Code. But with BC Parks, we are happy to partner with Leave No Trace. We partner with organizations like Adventure Smart and Wild Safe BC. It has been difficult to determine the best way to build that relationship with Leave No Trace Canada. So if you know a hot tip on how to get connected, put us in touch. Leave No Trace messaging is so well known and it's super complementary to our messages. So definitely would love to explore that partnership. And with Camp Works Cottage, we just wanted something that was more camping specific focused, not disregarding existing methods that already is out there.
CJ, just go ahead.
Yeah. Sherry, we can definitely chat about Leave No Trace. I'm connected with their board. But what I would say about both of your comments is that I love Leave No Trace. But I do think the research shows us that there is some value in those more specific images and specific targeted messages. I also, as I mentioned earlier, like the provocative targeting those moral and ethics and emotions, like those are things that Leave No Trace isn't doing right now, and that's okay. They have what they do really, really well. But I'm actually pretty excited to see some of those new messages from the Sea to Sky and BC Parks and Tread Lightly. Like I think there's a lot to be said for complementary messages and partnerships with Leave No Trace. I think they have great history, great brand recognition, and really great value. But then looking at where those specific images, messages, and behaviors might make more sense.
That's why I tended towards Tread Lightly, because when I was first looking at all this, I was looking at all the different ones and Leave No Trace came up. But again, like you said, people are saying it's more of a specifics, right? Whereas Tread Lightly, I got into Tread Lightly because it is for basically motorized vehicles, motorized, outdoor recreation. Yeah.
So I can see that we've got one more question here, thanks, Stephen, for answering. It was about whether Stephen's resources will be available. So I think that Stephen is answering that. Paul has a question as well. I don't think that's been answered yet. It's directed to any speaker. NIMBYism is against visitors or anyone using resources. It appears residents believe this is their area and it's not actually public. So management is opposed. Any thoughts? I wonder if, June, if you want to answer that, or should I ask Paul to maybe clarify anything?
No, I understand the question, and in fact, we did address. We have addressed that as a specific mindset, and it's a very interesting one because it implies that it starts. You go far enough with it, it's kind of like residents sort of self-assign themselves as being blameless. And in fact, what we're trying to do is get them to realize, actually, believe it or not, we don't have all the answers. We aren't all as knowledgeable as we think we are. So let's take some responsibility for becoming more knowledgeable than we are, so that we can be the best possible educators, ambassadors of our visitors. And it's in a way, it's kind of like starting at home first and making sure we understand what we're asking visitors to do, and that we actually we're behaving in a manner consistent with what with our expectations, as opposed to cutting ourselves some slack because, well, we live here. Well, we're on someone else's land now as well. I mean, we are on the shared unceded territory of Squamish and Lil'wat nations. And I'll wager that not all residents are familiar with where sacred sites are or what behavior is appropriate in sacred sites. I bet not everybody even understands what a riparian area is. We use language sometimes in our communities or with guests that I'm increasingly convinced a significant percentage of the local population is unfamiliar with some of the language we use. So I think we have to start at home first. That's kind of the epicenter from where learning will emanate, is pretty much how we're approaching this. And we're doing it, we're trying to be as provocative and as instructive without being admonishing to residents as we will with visitors. We all have that responsibility. I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, John. I think that's a great one. I think we're almost out of time, but I do want to allow time from, got one here from Jeff Playfair. He's saying these various initiatives are very educational based, and they may also influence values and morals. It seems to me that we can certainly target adults with these campaigns, but how can we embed these into the BC educational system? That's a really good question. You know, how can we get to the kids? I know that Sandra and Adventure Smart are certainly doing that really well with you know, some of their programs. Sherry, Stephen, or any of you, do you have any CJ? How can we get to the kids, you know, with these messages?
I'll just say one quick thing. Get them outside. So Stephen's book, get your families outside, get them experiencing nature as young as possible. Value nature in the education system. That comes from all of us voting for local and municipal and provincial and obviously federal, but in your own communities, vote for people that also value nature and therefore want to see it in our education systems and support it. But the research is unequivocal. Get kids outside, get them outside, get them outside. They will care about it when they are adults.
That's what we're trying to do with the Four Wheel Drive Association with Wheelers of Tomorrow, is target, you know, get programs and events for children, you know, and get the parents, because a lot of parents travel with their children already. But if we can get it more in a more of an educational, formalized setting, they'll see, you know, the right ways to do things. Trying.
We all trying. Good work. Just got one from Kim here. Thank you, John. So this is to John. Is there an Indigenous-led ambassador program in the works? So Kim is based in the Shawnigan Lake area, a member of Canada's first Rotary Eco Club.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was actually typing a note in the chat as well. Yes, we are privileged to have as a Indigenous Tourism BC representatives. We've actually just changed hands as to who that representative is, but we've had specific nations are involved in different aspects of the discussions, and certainly stakeholder discussions, depending on which stakeholders we're speaking to and which geography. But when it knits together in the Management Council of Sea to Sky, that is Indigenous Tourism BC. And we've just welcomed a new representative after having worked with Francine Douglas for a couple of years, 3 years actually, prior to just about now. So indeed, thank you.
Great. Well, that takes us to like 1:59. So, and I don't see any more questions. I mean, I did have questions, but I think we are out of time. I must say that I've got lots of ideas for future webinars that are just going to kind of zoom in on specific aspects of this. So, you know, probably at some point over the next couple of years, I'm probably going to invite you all back to deliver a presentation. So I just want to thank all of our presenters. Thank you very much for giving up your time today. And yeah, I'm really happy that we were able to, you know, just bring together such a diverse and insightful panel. So thank you for that. I also want to thank everybody who came along today and who tuned into this webinar. Thanks for doing that. Yeah, I think if there are some other questions, we'll just kind of take those offline. So the best way to kind of keep up to speed on the ORC's webinar offerings is to sign up for our newsletter. And the best way to do that is probably through our website. But yeah, there'll definitely be lots more coming. We're doing webinars from now on a monthly basis. The next one is coming up August 10th, and it's with a lawyer who's going to talk about liability and the importance of having good volunteer waivers. So all that information is on our website. But yeah, thanks again. I'm really happy, you know, that we could kind of get together and discuss responsible recreation. Yeah, as I said before, you know, I think it's probably never been more important. And there's lots we can all do. Let's lead by example. And there's lots of other wise words here today as well. So thank you, and we'll see you later.
Thank you, Louise. Very well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for participating. Pleasure to meet you all.